here is certainly one of the most important parts that you have to look at. So let's take a closer look at consumer behavior, or and we can call it what you like, social, environmental, or demographic forces, right? If you look at lifestyle, social responsibility, also natural environment, and also demographics. So demographics is the one that I really want to take a look at. So lifestyles, generally speaking, a society that places a great emphasis on the quality of life. This is lifestyles rather than work. How people want to emphasize their lives themselves more, the quality of their lives, I should say, than their work. Used to be the opposite for the longest of time. Work always took over everybody's lives, but if you see what's happening around you a lot, here in Quebec especially, with what's going on with this pandemic, a lot of people right now are leaving the city, and a lot of families, young families, have decided that the city is not the place to be, and right now they are moving to small towns, which is really incredible because it's the opposite of what it used to be, where anybody living in small towns would move to the city for a better lifestyle. Now it's the opposite. A lot of young families and young couples are moving out of the city here in Quebec and buying lots and farms and moving into small little towns far away from the city to get a better lifestyle because of what's going on around us. So has changed enormously. So this is a real huge pivot in lifestyles, in how certain people look at lifestyles. So the actual behavior of the consumer has has switched and has pivoted also to change their way they're actually living and bringing up their own families. And for them to, safety has become a predominant issue in their lifestyles more and more. So they've decided that it is better off that they get out of the city and move into smaller towns where it's certainly safer, only because there's less people. So lifestyles are changing continuously, and marketers certainly have to pay attention to this, and they certainly are. Also, what you have to pay attention to is, sales of homes. Here in Montreal, homes are selling like hotcakes, even if the fact that a lot of people are leaving. People want to get away from renting and purchase homes where they can have more independency in their actual home, or they're actually moving out of the city completely, like I said, and really disassociating themselves with a huge metropolitan like Montreal. So marketers are looking at this behavior, and they realize that there is a shift right now going on, that they're not going to come back. Once this shift is happening, because of this pandemic, it's not going to shift back. The lifestyles will change, and safety is certainly a huge part of it, right? Social responsibility and the natural environment, certainly, right? We're looking at sustainability as being a really important part of our everyday lives, for sure. And people, you eat differently, worried about the planet, concerned about how the planet is, and in Canada especially, being a part, having such a wide, vast land, certainly we look at when it comes to social responsibility maybe different than a lot of countries. In many cases, no, right? It's not as different than anywhere else. Okay, so that plays a big part. And demographics. This is what I wanted to show you. Demographics is a study of characteristics of the population, all the way from size, location, household, spending power, education, multiculturalism. So I can go show you this, right? Size and age, residents of population of Canada by 2018 by gender and age. As you can see that there is different generations here when it comes to the actual age groups. Okay, location, like I just told you, is a big issue, and a lot of people are moving out of the city right now and heading back into the rural part of Quebec. So I can only speak for Quebec, but I would imagine this is happening right across the country. Maybe not out west because it's pretty rural to begin with in places like Manitoba and Saskatchewan. But here in Quebec, where everybody is focused or living, most of the population in and around the area of Montreal, there is a spreading right now, and a lot of people are decided to leave the city, or as it says there, leave the actual urban core of the city for different reasons than, economical or even social. They want to be less social, right? And certainly less, economical in a sense where they don't mind earning less to be safe, to be safer, which is an unbelievable shift also when you think of that, right? Family formation and household size plays a big part in demographics, right? Sandwich generation, generation of parents who are simultaneously caring for children and aging relatives. Yes, this is happening to a lot of people. Certainly in my age group, we're taking care of both. So you can say that I'm part of this sandwich generation a lot, and we're stuck, not stuck, but we have both sides that we have to take care of. So this is a big thing that's happening today, is what they call a sandwich generation. It's kind of funny, but makes me hungry. Also, spending power and wealth, it plays a big part, and multiculturalism also plays a big part. Before I shift over to, I can show you technological forces also plays a big part, managing customers, communications, and also e-commerce and the internet. Before I continue, I just want to show you some more demographic facts about Quebec or Canada. So just one sec. Canada, you'll see that Canada is a monster country when it comes to size, but there's not many people living in this country. So as you can see, every major city is really right along the American border, right? So here's another picture that shows you how the population is diversified or disseminated in the area. And again, you can see where all the people are living, and there is no one or hardly anybody up here, right? Everybody's actually closer, like I said, to the border. Edmonton being the exception only because there's a lot of oil there still today, but everything else is barren when it comes to land. So this will give you a better understanding how the demographics work in Canada, is that, as you can see above this line, maybe today is a little bit more, but there's not that many people living above here. Right? There's not that much. It's closer to 1 million only because you got Edmonton that's over here. But if you take away Edmonton, which has a population of, I think, 450,000, right? There's less than 500,000 people living up here. So as vast as Canada is in size, and land, there's really not that many people living there. So at night, it looks something like this, right? So as you can see, there's not many lights up here. And this is, like I said, is Edmonton. If you take that away, it's even less, right? And in Quebec, it plays a big part when it comes to language. If you look at language playing a big part, right? You can see here in Quebec and Montreal how dense it is, and really there's not much up north either. But you can see also the bilingualism of the language, that most people are closer to the border, right? Ontario border, and also this is New Brunswick over here on this side, right? So most of the people that are bilingual live closer to the border, and the ones that are more further north are just, or out of the city of Montreal, as you can see, only speak French. So Montreal, it really is diversified in that sense and different than the rest of the province of Quebec. So this is really something where demographics or marketers have a lot of issues with, because they have to differentiate Quebecers as a group, only because of the actual geographic stance of where they are, and how they are living. So if you, like I said, in the area of Montreal, extremely bilingual and different languages also, but outside outside the actual city, if you are not living close to the border, not many people speak English. Right, in many aspects, it's such a wide area that in this area here, where it says Gatineau, Montreal, a lot of people living in Ontario, in places like Hawkesbury, speak French, if not more than a lot of people that live in areas on this side of the border. So French is really something that has spilled out into the province of Quebec, into other provinces. It's not just a language that's spoken here in Quebec. I'm not sure if you know this or not, but there are towns in New Brunswick where they only speak French, and certainly that is a surprise to a lot of people to hear that, because everybody associates French to Quebec and does not associate French with any other province. But French really is spoken right across the country in certain areas, not as much as it is here, certainly, but it plays a big part. So I just wanted to show you that. I'll stop sharing that. Okay, so let's get back to this. Managing customers, and we're almost done. Right, so managing customers, what comes into play a lot is CRM, right? Customer relationships management and effective customer relationship management. Collects information about customers, analyzes the information, develops a marketing strategy precisely designed to meet the needs of the customer, right? In actual fact, I want to show you something else. I just want to finish this off, and then I'll show you something else about generations. Again, technology and marketing communications, right? Internet access devices, more and more here in Canada. This dates back a couple of years to 2018, and certainly there's been a shift since then from desk or laptop to certainly a lot more smartphones than the actual tablets, you can say, or even desktops, right? Quite a shift. When you look back 25 years, or not even 25 years, if you look back even 10 years compared to today, it's an incredible shift when it comes to how technology has taken over. The internet and e-commerce, right, there again, how e-commerce has taken over quite a bit. This is just a few years back, but if you go further back than this, you'll see that that's really a huge shift here before 2017, right? Retail e-commerce revenue. Certainly a lot of us that knew Amazon when Amazon was just selling books and only selling books, and their value was not very high. A lot of us, especially baby boomers, we regret certainly not buying shares into Amazon today, or then I should say, because certainly their lives would have been completely different for sure. You can just imagine the stock of an Amazon back when it started, when they were selling books, were valued anywhere between $25 and $40 a share, and today you're talking 2,000 plus, I think, if I'm not mistaken, per share. So it's something that really has exploded, and like I said, a lot of people do regret not buying the Amazon shares, or even Apple, or even Microsoft. So that plays a big part. The internet, Canadian commerce, facts and figures. There's a lot of facts and figures when it comes to that, right? Computers and electronics that we purchase. It's a huge part of e-commerce, certainly, because we need to stay connected. Like you, some of you don't have computers. Well, I think it's time to increase that number, right? So you need to get yourself computers to follow up on this course or this class, okay? Because no matter what, I don't think we're going to go back into class anytime soon. So it's a good idea that you associate yourself or get yourself a computer. You can't take this course using a phone. Yeah, okay. Right, so mass customization, creation of systems that can produce products and personalized messages to a target audience of one. This is certainly something that a lot of companies are looking at when it comes to laser printing, or when it comes to not laser printing, but all kinds of systems where they can produce products of one that are very individual versus just mass products, right? So customization certainly is a big business, and we can see that specifically now with what has emerged in this new world, new era. You can call it what you like. Even masks, right? So masks, people have created their own masks, and a lot of companies will customize your masks for every individual because they want to be different. Or even if you see a lot of uh, artists or people in the news on TV or on Instagram or whatever, you'll see that their masks will match their outfits. So masks have become a huge part of everyday lives for sure, and maybe not in the United States as much as here, but it will become more, and customization will become a big issue, a big part of how you sell that mask at a higher price for every individual, right? So legal and regulatory forces, right? Industry Canada, Competition Act plays a big part. You've got many other, when it comes to legal or regulatory forces here in Canada, right? Competition Bureau plays a big part. Office of Consumer Affairs. Also Consumer Protection, which does not state here, but Consumer Protection also plays a big part, where certain companies will need to follow rules and regulations that they don't that do protect the actual consumer also, right? So I do want to show you one more thing, and so we'll stop sharing this. When it comes to generations, where are you? Generations. Okay, let me share this. Just some more information on generational demographics, right? There is many generations going back to silent generations, baby boomers, and now they've associated letters to it. But you have Generation X, or the Xers that came after the baby boomers, Generation Y, which is the Millennials. I think most of you are in here, and Generation Z. So Generation Z actually now is about to be followed by another generation, and it's probably going to be called something that's going on around today. So who knows what it's going to be called? Generation COVID? Maybe not. Hopefully it's not called that, but or Generation A or something like that. Generation 19. But there's certainly evolving towards another generation coming up, right? So if you look at silent generation, right? This group of people born from the mid-20s to the early 40s, right? The name was originally applied to people in the United States and Canada. Silent generation really is a generation. Why do you think it's called silent generation? Anybody would have any idea? Seen but not heard is a big part. But what you have to also look at, why they're called the silent generation, is the fact that they all came out of a war, and certainly that played a big part in how they saw their lives and everything. And like it says, they want to be seen but not heard, and live a peaceful life is the main reason why it's called silent generation, right? This usually applies to people that are born here in Canada or in US. The big one that came after the war is the boomers, right? This goes from 46 to 64. Certainly I fit in there, right? So baby boomers really were born during the post-war in 46 to 64. It includes people who are now This dates back to 2017, so you can see the age group. The age group that is now, if you add a couple of years, it is getting older and older. The baby boomers are slowly having less buying power than they used to, right? When you look at consumer behavior, silent generation certainly does not buy much when it comes to marketers are not looking at them anymore. Now all of a sudden, baby boomers, that really was the actual generation that spent the most, right? You know, we're responsible for pollution. We're responsible for the environmental issues that we're living through. Baby boomers are responsible for plastic and all these things that came around. Cars taking off the way they have, the size of motors of cars and all that, that this started in the 60s. So baby boomers are responsible for a lot of things, right? They certainly are the wealthiest, and today have switched over and have become very physical, you know, fit versus the way they used to be. So baby boomers are very good pivoters, right? We've adapted to life the way it is and try to extend our lives as much as possible because we like what we see around us, especially with the internet, and we have adapted to that enormously. I say we because, of course, I'm a baby boomer. And we have adapted enormously to this. And we want to live life longer and healthier for sure. So it's a pivot too. That, again, marketers have to see this and they have switched it. A good example is, you know, talked about cars, but cars plays a big part, right? And a lot of baby boomers today want to live longer, see lives, see what's going on around them, and they're buying Teslas like they're going out of style. Why? Because Teslas is very trendy still, and actually now it's more than just trendy. It's really part of a huge market, and they want to stay ahead of the market. And they switched from buying cars that they were liking before, like Mustangs or Cadillacs. And a lot of baby boomers today are buying Teslas only to stay part of the trend, part of what's going on around them, becoming, you know, maybe they feel guilty that they had such huge cars and polluted the world as much as they have. So it could be something to do with that too, right? So again, just to show you how generations had certain, you know, buying prowess or how they would actually purchase products or strategies, and now all of a sudden, well, as an age group, they're getting older and older, still healthy and still buying. So marketers have to look at them still as a buying force, and they have to adapt to them, right? Like I said, they're buying a lot of products today that are sustainable and green versus, you know, 5 years ago where they wouldn't do this. The next one is Generation X, commonly abbreviated to Generation or Gen X's. This is born after the Western post-World War II baby boom, right? And their most demographics and commentators use birth range from the 60s to the 80s. They are, in a way, a lot like the lost generation, right? In a way, because they're stuck between baby boomers and millennials. And this is the big issue, is the fact that they were born just prior to the internet. So they have a good understanding, like I do, of how the world was prior to the internet, right? But as a lot of baby boomers have adopted the computers, certainly Generation Xers have done that too, but also they have a good understanding of what their life has to be when it comes to making money and their lives. So these are the people that I was telling you about that today are leaving the city of Montreal and going out and living outside the city to have a better lifestyle. They really want to have a lifestyle that is different, a little bit more flexible than just living their lives a certain way for all their lives. So Generation Xers, they're in between, and they certainly reach a point in their lives where they have to look at certain things differently, and also are very adaptable to what surrounds them today, right? That's Generation X. Then you got the Ys, and the Ys, I'm not sure when you guys were born, but probably somewhere around here. So if you are born between 80 and 1980 and 1995, you are a millennial, right? And they're usually coming of age around this. Coming of age means 18 years old and more, right? That's what that means. And it's a huge population of millennials also. Don't forget, millennials are also the children of all the baby boomers and also some of the Xers. Very diverse, right? And here also lived through the fact of they were born on the internet, but they also watched the internet grow and started with, you know, how slow it used to be, or the actual steps in the evolution of the internet, right? And also the fact that a lot of them were born, you know, in single parent homes, and also in dual income, where that means that you have to have more than one job. So they were brought up in a different times too in society. They had to go through a lot when it came to what happened. It doesn't show up here, but when it comes to jobs and everything, in 2008 there was a huge collapse in the economy, right? And just when they were becoming part of the actual, you know, economy itself, and when it came to the workforce, all of a sudden there's a huge crash. There was no more jobs. A lot of people lost their jobs, from all the way from baby boomers up till then. So all of a sudden they couldn't find any job, and it's even worse when it came to the next generation, for sure. Right, so if you compare generations X and Y's, right, it looks something like this, right? Certain characteristics of them, right, plays a very big part. And the next one is Generation Z's, and this is from 95 to 2012, right? Here they're coming of age in 2013 to 2020. So this is still evolving as a generation, right? And it's still growing as a generation, certainly, right? So here the generation plays a big part, and they are not anymore baby boomers' children, certainly not. All of a sudden, baby boomers are completely out of the picture, and they have become Generation Z, right? They become Generation Xers, I should say, children. And it says, as it says there, right, kids will grow up with a highly sophisticated media and computer environment. Here, really, if you look at coming of age or born in 1995, the internet at that stage certainly has evolved enormously. And they are brought up with this, and they have no idea how the internet, how the world lived before then. So think about yourselves when you were born. How was the internet, and what did you know about the internet, and what did you know about the world that was without that, and how would you have lived in a world without the internet, and how the internet is a generation by itself, right? It's certainly, you can identify people by how much they know when they were born, and how far back they understood the actual internet itself, or the structure of it. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that, and I will post this so you can have it. And so I'm going to stop sharing that.